Guy's a badass, man. It's not just that he starts in the All-Star game. It's not just that he's top 10 in the National League in wins, ERA, and strikeouts. It's that he's doing it the old-fashioned way. Not throwing 99 and 100 like all these bums out there. No, he'll get you with 92, 93, 94, and people won't figure out how to hit him. I mean, do you follow? You're Phoenix-based. Do you follow Zac Gallen?
I do. I've been to a couple of D-backs games.
Okay. Thank you, Zac, for joining us. Congratulations on all of your success. Can you explain to me how it is that you do it? Because even you have to marvel at the guys coming out of your bullpen throwing sometimes 6, 7 miles an hour faster than you are.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Don't get it twisted. I would love to have the 98, 99 into 100. I think the margin for error is definitely a little bit larger. But yeah, I mean, I was never a guy when I was younger that threw hard. Still don't. So I just had to learn how to pitch. I learned how to, take the chess match out there and just kind of sequence pitches, learn how to manipulate the ball, make the ball move a little bit differently. And just some other stuff just kind of was natural. That kind of helped me out, which was nice. But yeah, I just had to learn how to pitch, really.
Who are the guys in the league that you look at that you admire from that standpoint? Not because they're just out there and they've got the overwhelming stuff, but because you're admiring their craftsmanship.
Yeah, I think for me, this is my 5th year in the big leagues now, and it's gotten to the point where, I mean, you're seeing the guys that I grew up with that were Kershaw, Scherzer, Verlander. I'm kind of infatuated with how they've done it for so long and at such a high level. So those are the guys I grew up with. Those are the guys I really take a liking to, watching them do their stuff. Some of the newer guys are DeGrom. But yeah, those are the guys that I'm infatuated with.
Dan, you know how I know Zac's fastball is of a slower variety? Because years and years ago, Randy Johnson hit a bird with a pitch, and Zac Gallen earlier this year hit a bird with a pitch. But the difference is, in Zac's case, the bird kind of just got hit and fell down and died. In Randy Johnson's case, it just exploded into feathers like a cartoon. Like we never saw where the bird went. It just landed like feathers. He evaporated it.
How much guilt, and I don't like that we've started this interview with a man who is truly great at what he does by just insulting his fastball.
No, it's praise because it's amazing. He's incredible without having something that disintegrates birds.
But tell us about the bird incident. Did you feel horror? One time I was driving and a bird made its way into the grid of my car at 70 miles an hour, and cartoonishly in the rearview mirror I saw it falling out of the sky with feathers, and it left a stomach sickness for a while in my stomach because I felt bad about killing the bird. Did you feel great remorse?
Yeah, it was an unfortunate accident for sure. I mean, I didn't even hit it with a fastball, so I hit it with a curveball. So maybe that might be even harder than trying to hit it with a fastball.
I stand corrected.
And so yeah, I mean, hey, I still got 97 in the tank. It's just not there all the time. It's on rare occasions does it show up. But yeah, I mean, it was unfortunate. I didn't. The bird was kind of flying at like a 45-degree angle, and I was just throwing that day and didn't even see the bird. The ball took it went off course, so I was kind of not really sure what happened. And we, after a couple of seconds, we realized that it was a bird. It hit my coach in the foot. And then, yeah, it was a couple minutes of just kind of disbelief. I was out there, nobody else was paying attention. It was just me and him out there. And I came into the dugout and guys like, well, what's going on? I'm like, I just hit a bird. So we went and we were telling people about it, and our video guy, Alan Campbell, got it on video. People were like, I have to see this. No way. So yeah, it was unfortunate. And it's just one of those things that the bird was just flying at an angle and just kind of flew into the ball, which is kind of wild to think about.
Did I hear you correctly that the carcass of the bird then hit your coach in the foot?
Yeah. So the way that I threw the curveball and our coach missed it. I'm like, okay, it wasn't really that good of a curve. It was good, but it wasn't like a great curveball for him to miss. And I just saw this what we now know as a bird, kind of just it headed towards the ground, bounced, hit the ground twice, and it hits him in the leg. And he turns around to look for the ball because the ball goes behind him. And then you can see on the video that he looks down and realizes that it hits him, like it hits the ground, like skips twice, and it hits him in the leg. Yeah, I mean, it was a small bird. But yeah, it was unfortunate. It was tough.
When you imagined whatever your big league career would look like, or when you dreamt of what it was going to be like, your life as a youth pitcher, what did it look like? Have you exceeded your expectations?
You know, it's funny. I was kind of having a similar conversation with about this with my travel coach not too long ago. I saw him a couple weeks ago in Phoenix, and it was, I would say, yes, it's been exceeded. For me, I always had a feeling that I was going to play in the big leagues. It was always I had family members ask, what are you going to do if baseball doesn't work out? And for me, it was like, baseball is going to work out. Like, I don't know. I don't have a backup plan. I'm just going to, I'm so, but to get to this level, I don't think I never, dreamt of that. I never dreamt I was, going to start the All-Star game, was going to, have 2 records in, the first 3 years of my career. Like it's just one of those things of like, I knew I was going to get to the big leagues, and I was just going to try and get as good as I possibly could, and play as long as I possibly can.
When you talk about being infatuated with players or certain skill levels, early on, was there anybody that you faced where you had to step off the mound or gather yourself because you're like, I can't believe that I'm here doing this. I'm finding myself moved as this is happening, or do you have to treat every single person? They can't be an icon. They have to be an out.
Yeah, I think now, I think you can allow yourself to do that when you're younger. Your first time in the big leagues, or maybe first time in big league spring training. It's okay. I mean, I'm pretty stoic for the most part, and I try not to. But as I look back now, I realize that those are moments that, you can kind of soak it in. I think for me, the first guy that I faced was in 2018 in big league spring training. I faced Miguel Cabrera, and that's a guy that I grew up watching, and really didn't think anything of it. And then you just kind of see he's like a larger than life figure in the box, and it's just kind of like, wow, this is Miguel Cabrera. So that was the first guy, and then there's just been some guys that I grew up a Cardinals fan, so facing Albert Pujols in spring training, I think it was just stuff like that is cool. You see back then, this was 2019. I think it was 2020. Shohei Ohtani hadn't really become the Shohei Ohtani that we know of him now. But guys like that, Trout, same thing. Just, it's good to soak those moments in, but at the same time, it's like, all right, back to business. And now I'm kind of like, all right, I need to do a job. I need to get this guy out.
Zac, as someone who's confident in your stuff, who's someone from baseball history that you wish, I wish I could have pitched against him, just to see how hard it was?
Yeah, we have this conversation all the time in the locker room, and it's the kind of the same old thing that happens just like in any other sport. The guys now are talking about how the guys back then couldn't they wouldn't have been able to hang. I think the one for me is probably Babe Ruth. That's if I'm going back like legend,
you'd smoke him. Tell us about the conversations in the locker room that you're having of like, I'd throw Babe Ruth 9 pitches in an inning and he would swing and miss at all of them.
Yeah, that's pretty much the general how it goes. It's it's funny because you hear the hitters talk about, oh, so and so, I don't like, they're just like, that guy would have hit 240 today. And then you hear about the pitchers will go, yeah, this guy threw 400 innings, but he was throwing 75 miles an hour. Like he would have 10 ERA if he played today. That's usually how it goes. And it gets pretty wild because there's some people, most of the players it's generations, obviously. So the players are like, well, this guy would have been nothing today. But then you get some coaches who played, back in the 80s and 90s, like, oh no, that guy was legit. And then so it's kind of a fun conversation. But I would say for me, if I'm going way back, I'm going Babe Ruth. If I'm going more recently, it's probably Barry Bonds, and I probably walk him anyway. So,
can you give us a guy in the big leagues now, Zach, that you throw your pitch, you feel good about where you've put it, and still you're amazed because that skill level has doubled off the wall?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Just guys that I think are just a tough out. I mean, the guys like, you could probably name who I'm gonna name, in the sense of like they're on, MLB Network every night. I mean, I think Acuna, Tatis, the guys that, I mean, you're looking at, they're going, wow, he does something every night that you're like, that's impressive. That's a really good player. That's something that we're not going to see. I haven't faced Corbin Carroll, but Corbin Carroll is at that point in his career, or about to be at that point in his career, where I think a lot of people face him and go, yeah, that was a good pitch. Like, I mean, Max Scherzer threw him a changeup earlier this year when we played the Mets. And I mean, it was a little more of a horizontal changeup, didn't have as much depth, but I mean, it was probably three balls off the plate. Corbin just shoots at the left field for a home run. And I know as a pitcher, that I would go, yeah, that's a fine pitch. Like, I would throw that again. Mookie Betts did that to me. Mookie Betts is probably one of those guys that, like Mookie, Freddie Freeman, where you're just throwing pitches and, they're just so good at what they do that, they're able to foul it off or put it in play, or like you said, hit it off the wall. It's impressive.
Yeah. You wear number 23. You went to North Carolina. Aren't you a little young to be a Jordan fan? Like, you didn't even get to see Jordan play.
I didn't get to see Jordan play in Chicago, but I did get to see Jordan play when he was with the Wizards. They came to Philly. I think I was, 7, 8, something like that. But I more so I was a Jordan fan because my brother. So my brother's almost 9 years older than me. So he was prime. He was prime Jordan era. So he had all the Jordan clothes, shoes, all that stuff. And then I just kind of, saw, YouTube highlights, whatever. But I did get to see him play. I think it might have been his last year, or second to last year, whatever it was. But I can't actually say I've seen him play.
How do you guys feel about his nickname, the Milkman? The Milkman. How do we feel about that as a nickname?
Wasn't aware.
That's Stetson Bennett's nickname, I think.
I'm lactose intolerant.
No, not a fan. How about Bird Killer?
Birdman.
Oh, that's taken.
Taken.
No.
What is the story behind the Milkman? Has it caught on?
Yeah, I think it's kind of caught on a little bit. So from what I understand is that when I was at UNC, one of our like radio/TV guy, like one of the guys who would do, like when we would play on TV or whatever, he was color commentator, and he started calling me the Milkman. So for the longest time, I thought it was just because, gallon of milk. I'm like, I just figured it was just kind of a, pun, like play on words, whatever. And come to find out, when I finally asked him, he was like, oh no, I did that because the Milkman always delivers. Like whenever we needed a big start, you seemed to deliver. So I was like, oh, okay. Like I was going with the gallon of milk thing for I was like, that's fine enough for me.
What do you know from
Is this
a
person
Milkman?
80 years old?
Yeah, no, like,
how old is this
that's
person?
20 CB
Back
right
when
there.
they delivered milk to your door.
Exactly. He's not like he's not that old. I mean, he was fairly young at the time. I mean, this is what, 2015, 24. So I would say he was probably in his late 30s. Like it wasn't like
he wasn't around for
75-year-old man. So that's, and then somehow it caught on in Arizona, like in Phoenix. I don't know what it was. Somebody probably on Twitter saw it and heard about it, and then people started saying it, and I'm a little hesitant to like lean into it, and then I just was like, whatever. I mean, let's just lean into this thing. If they're gonna do it anyway, I might as well just kind of build a quasi brand out of it, I guess. So let's see what we got.
The milkman, ladies and gentlemen, profoundly indifferent about his nickname, it sounds like. Zac, thank you for being on with us.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me.
Thanks. That helps. Go. Yeah.
That's how you clear your throat?
Yeah. That's why how I prep my voice.
You think that actually works, huh?
Yeah. I do it every time I do oddball before I start. I go, warms my throat up.
Phenomena.
Manamana.
Let's go.
Jessica has gone behind a paywall.
Cool.
I'm hoping that Meadowlark is paying for that because Meadowlark cares about its employees. What is that sound? What is that sound? You made a sound right now. I get so many emails. I saw an email the other day, just tens of thousands of dollars that had to be spent on health insurance so that you guys would not have to cover.
Thank you for the health insurance, Dan.
Appreciate that.
Please, more.
That is the kind of gratitude I've come to expect.
Thank you for letting me keep my teeth, kind sir.
Just saying that this company does care about you.
Well, I don't know, Dan. I saw something very sketchy in Rolling Stone, and it is behind a paywall, so I only have a couple excerpts here. But this is an article that has just been released about said company and whether or not it cares about its employees.
Our company? Our company?
I've been dreading this day.
Do you want to hear the article?
Is it toxic work environment stuff?
Finally happened.
Matt
They
Sullivan,
report,
I told you.
They report, you
I'll
decide.
let you decide for yourself.
Throws pens at his employees?
Oh, that might be in here. Let's see. It says, this is from Rolling Stone, behind a paywall. It was a particularly tense day at the once historic Clevelander Hotel on June 4th, 2021, when the cast of the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz prepared to broadcast for 24 hours straight to announce a new partnership with DraftKings Inc. Dan Le Batard, live on YouTube, started the show by crying, according to one longtime listener named for a condiment. The real turmoil began when the clock struck midnight, however, and an anonymous employee was forced to eat a Carolina Reaper pepper that had not been vetted by the company's newly named corporate leadership. The employee, speaking anonymously with Rolling Stone, said that when they asked executive producer Michael Ryan Ruiz if they could speak to human resources, he replied, LOL, what HR?
Wow, so Mike Ryan is getting taken out there off the top by name?
By name.
The anonymous employee was...
It's anonymous.
It's anonymous, Dan. It goes on to say the Carolina Reaper incident was just the beginning of a tumultuous 2 years for the former ESPN show, helmed by the titular Dan Le Batard. I think that means that your name's on the show, not that you have tits.
Right, yeah.
Rolling Stone
no.
spoke... Roy.
That was unnecessary.
That might be in the story, too, now. Let's see how quickly they're updating
We all got to
this.
be on our best behavior now.
Yeah, sorry.
Rolling Stone spoke to employees who have claimed they were subjected to hours-long conversations about circumcision, bowel movements, and the University of Miami Hurricanes football team.
That one seems pointed.
And true.
And recent. That wasn't in 2021.
Wasn't much
It
to
wasn't?
talk about.
There's a couple more excerpts. I'll read the next one. It says, one source close to the show also said Dan Le Batard himself bribed employees to stay with promises of equity in the company and a form of massage known as mashing, in which Le Batard's personal masseuse would dig her toes into employees' vertebrae. The source also claimed the employees were enticed to come into work for a surprise visit from the Stanley Cup, only to find out it was not the real Stanley Cup, but a fake one.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
That was one of the dirtiest things you've ever done, Le Batard.
I didn't know that. I didn't commit the fraud. I was a victim.
Oh, please. Is Roy the source then?
I
Roy,
had nothing to do with this.
Roy,
I don't know
you
what-
did tell us it was the fake cup, and that's why you weren't upset to not have been here the day that the cup arrived.
Hey, listen, don't throw my name, keep my name out of your mouth. I'm not in this.
Well, the next part's about money, Dan, so you're not going to like it. It says, there have also been allegations about financial impropriety involving the company's own, quote, slush fund. Documents reviewed by Rolling Stone show that in 2022, a seven-figure sum was given to Miami's faltering quarterback amid a 5-7 campaign that did not result in a bowl bid. Another document
That
revealed
seems like editorializing.
large
right there.
sums of money being funneled to Zoo Miami's very own Ron McGill's and his sizable endowment.
Yeah, and his wardrobe and his car collection have improved. in keeping with the hater theme of today, I don't believe there is a greater hatred that's been expressed on this show than the one that Lucy seems to have for Kim Mulkey.
I hate her so much.
But she dresses so fancy.
Kim Mulkey is a pioneer that just got a 10-year, $32 million contract. You didn't like that word? You don't like the word pioneer, Lucy?
I would call her a witch. That's what I would call her.
Whoa.
God damn.
Whoa.
Okay, is it just that she seems like she is horrible in all of her opinions, or is there some other reason that you don't like her?
It's pretty much everything about her. Her opinions are horrible. She's unpleasant. She's the reason I say I support most women and not all women.
Wow. Wow. She's the reason?
Yep. Her and Candace Owens.
Got her ass.
Well, what is it that her players have to say about her? Because 10 years makes her a dynasty now. 10 years makes her retire on your own terms, get a kind of money that you do not see very often in women's sports. And this part is groundbreaking, to give a leader, to pay a leader like this in women's sports. That's not a contract you see very often.
I mean, her players at LSU now absolutely love her. I mean, why wouldn't they? She just won a national championship. But when all of that stuff was happening with Brittany Griner and Kim Mulkey was refusing to comment on it, former players came out and was like, hey, watch who you're sending your kids to play for. Because Kim Mulkey, like, she is loved by a lot of her players. She's hated by also a lot of her players. Her and Brittany Griner haven't spoken in years.
Don't you guys at this point expect coaches under the umbrella of leadership, and we've got to be tougher, and you aren't strong enough as strategic people, you're the muscle here, I need to teach you how to do this? Don't you almost expect them to be mean and file it under discipline?
She's not mean, though. That's not why I don't like her. She's innately hateful, and I know that sounds ridiculous after I just called her a witch. But, like, when she was at Baylor, there was a horrible sexual assault, rape scandal within the football program, and she said, if you're not going to send your daughter to Baylor because of that, you deserve to be punched in the face. She literally said that.
Yeah, that goes a little bit beyond being mean.
She's nasty.
It's wild,
Is
man.
nasty worse than mean on the
Oh, yeah.
upgraded scale of
yes.
what people are?
For sure, because when you call someone
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
like, you're mean.
Nasty
like, wow,
is nasty.
You're nasty. Like, even your face, you can't even say that word without contorting your face in disgust. Nasty.
You
I
have to
mean-
say it like that?
I think this
Nasty.
kind of goes back to the conversation we were having in the last segment as well, where there is a line, and it used to be that it didn't matter if you crossed the line, if you were in a position of power, that's too bad for everyone else. But now that we have, I guess, more opportunities to realize and remember what people are saying that are in these positions, and more choices to not have to agree with them. The things that Kim Mulkey has said have stuck with her and have tarnished her reputation, which could have been one of the greatest women's basketball coaches of all time, but I think will forever be incredibly negative, and there are people that will never forgive the things that she's done with Brittany Griner, the things that she's said in the past at Baylor, and the way that she's treated some of her players that have been the reason that she's been so successful.
Those players that have helped her get to the top at Baylor, she would tell them, don't come out. I don't let anyone know about your sexuality because it's going to hurt recruiting. Like, she has just done things time and time again to show you who she is. And yes, she's a hell of a basketball coach, but I do not like her. She's rotten.
Go ahead and help me. Rotten witch. She's a rotten witch.
Wait, rotten versus nasty. Which one? Where's high? I think nasty is, because rotten, you can say rotten, but nasty got that disgusting look. Ugh, you're nasty. It goes
She's
mean,
both.
rotten, nasty, right?
Well, it goes mean, rotten, nasty, and then nasty, where you're really hitting that end.
I don't think there's a difference. I don't think you can say nasty without.
What do
hitting that
we
end.
do with rotten? I think that was what Lucy gave, like a little like extra, yeah.
Maybe
Rotten.
there's some degrees to nasty though. Nasty.
Well, when you say it like that, sometimes nasty can be a good thing.
Oh,
Like when
Janet
Le-
Jackson, yeah.
No, like when LeBron says it.
This is the part that I wanted to talk to you guys about because I think that in many instances, winning ends up deodorizing a lot of mean, a lot of nasty. Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant were cruel. They were cruel people, and they filed it under competition and furthermore made it the reason that they won. And we celebrate that nastiness, that cruelty. I don't know where you guys are putting the line on some of this. What is, because she's done major winning, and Lucy said, well, of course her players love her. They won a championship for her. But I can see being miserable winning a championship if you're working for somebody, even if you're winning, who is being bad to you, who is being, like, you come home from work and you feel unpleasant because the person who has power over you is unkind. Beyond not caring about you, beyond the idea of a business not caring about you, the person in charge to whom you are powerless. You have a dream. You have a dream that is funded by money. That person is mean, but you win.
That was in the kicker of the Rolling Stone story about Meadowlark. I actually just got to the bottom.
Oh, you
of it.
paid it? You Meadowlark
Yeah.
paid for you to get to the back
I
of
won't
the...
repeat what they wrote about Amin. I'll let him find out later.
As long as they didn't call me nasty, I'm
They
fine.
called you inebriated.
Whoa.
Oh my God.
Yo,
Careful.
you started yelling.
Yeah, I got scared there. I got scared.
Hey,
No, because I'm that guy.
I mean, look,
No,
man,
I'll just say it into a live mic.
I think
Come
it's
on, you know that I say that behind closed
I
doors.
think
That's
it's
right.
in the story too. I don't know.
Roy did not need you
I
signing
know,
off on that
I know.
joke. It was dangerous enough to begin with.
What is the kicker to the Rolling Stone story?
Something about money and dreams and the person in charge, but you're always doing winning. And how does it feel? And basically what you just said, Dan.
Okay.
You got it.
Wow.
Yep.
Oh, well.
Are you not of the
But also that the employees are glad they have health insurance.
Yes.
tens of thousands of dollars that you don't get stuck with? It's really what I dreamed of when I set sail. I'm like, can I get a bunch of bills for health insurance? Like that. What I really like is just to have a future where I cannot escape a prison of my own making that is papered with health insurance.
Man, in 2 years, this prostate's going to thank you.
This is pretty common knowledge in the entertainment industry, but I have never seen it actually written anywhere and reported. Are you guys aware that the environment of The Tonight Show, Jimmy Fallon's environment, is a pretty poisoned one? Because Rolling Stone has now talked to 16 current and former staffers at The Tonight Show, and Jimmy Fallon's public image is one of benign likability, kindness, just his affable television persona, and his environment is something that a lot of people have complained about for a long time behind the scenes, that the making of The Tonight Show is a bit of a misery.
I heard about that a lot when I lived in LA. It was one of the, when you'd go out to get drinks, everyone would be like, did you hear what Fallon did this week? Like, he was always kind of somebody whose name was thrown around, so I'm not super shocked by this.
Continuing the theme from the last segment, I would like to throw my hat in as a longtime Jimmy Fallon hater.
Yes.
This news makes me so happy.
Let the hate flow through you.
I've always thought he was a hack. I've always thought his whole thing is kissing ass and like giggling and laughing at his own not funny jokes to try to convince other people to laugh along. And oh, by the way, I have secret musical desires, but I'm not really good enough. But I'm going to pretend by having like my musical fantasies played out every single day or show or whatever.
Are we still talking about Deion Sanders?
I'm so happy. I'm not happy for the people who are the victims of this terrible, toxic workplace, but I'm happy that this has finally come out, that he's a piece. That's right.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Or
Allegedly.
it's your opinion. I thought he was like a known like cornball that people didn't get along with, though. So this news does not surprise me.
It doesn't surprise you of toxicity in a workplace in a late night environment over.
Did you just hear what you said? No. So toxicity in a late night environment? That I feel like that goes with the territory.
It does.
It seems like these places are all terrible places to work.
How many old PAs from the Tonight Show of years past are laughing that you can have an expose in Rolling Stone? Oh, you're stressed out at a daily talk show? I mean, what is this? We're in a whole new world where Ellen gets to be called out as mean and Jimmy Fallon gets to be called out as mean when all these people with Hollywood stars get to have their wonderful legacies when they were probably just as difficult.
I would have assumed Letterman.
Carson was a walk in the park.
Letterman had a cold environment and has his regrets about not enjoying it more. But I would have assumed, even though you're right, Ellen and a lot of workplaces are toxic. I simply would have assumed that in a place that looked that jovial, looked that fun, I would have assumed, not knowing anything, that many of those environments were fun to work in because there's a lot of laughter. I know the Seth Meyers, I mean, it does depend on who's in charge, and it's not just the person on camera. The showrunner, I'm pretty sure I have this right, that Seth Meyers' showrunner used to be Fallon's, and that environment changed, and Seth Meyers' environment became a lot more fun when the showrunners changed. But I would have simply assumed that if I'm around a lot of jokes, I would have assumed that would be a good place to work, that many people would get into the industry wanting to work in that industry, thinking that it would be fun.
Yeah, I mean, like, yes, but also I think this is going to sound weird, like I'm defending my sworn enemy, Jimmy Fallon, but sometimes people think it's going to be fun because the final product is fun and they don't realize it's still a job. There's still immense pressures. And people are going to be demanding. And so when like the concept of the crying room, like, I'm like, look, man, like we've all had days at work with awful bosses. I mean, to have to like express it as like, oh my God, it was so bad I had to go to a room and cry. I'm like, that's kind of like life. Some of that, it reminds me, you know what it reminds me of? Remember when Magic Johnson, that thing came out with the Lakers, that Magic Johnson was demanding it. He would yell at people. I'm like, yeah, that's the job. That's the job. I haven't worked on a late night TV show, but I've worked in an NBA team, and I know what that pressure is like. Not every time you up, someone's going to be like, now, I really needed it like this, but you did it like this. Could you do a little hard? I'm like, no, that's not the job. And if that's not the kind of environment you flourish in, it may not be the job for you.
Oh, but Amin, I believe that you're bringing old ways of looking at this, at what we're talking about. I remember famously, I think Magic Johnson didn't have any patience, lasted like 9 games as the head coach.
Yeah.
And at one point, he did take, this is how old this story is, the pager, the beeper of Vlade Divac, and threw it across the room and broke it on a wall. But I do believe that some of this stuff, like it comes for the late night hosts and for Ellen, eventually it's going to come for sports. It did a little bit after George Floyd, where some strength coaches and everybody, it had to get as bad as racism,
right?
The cruelty.
That's different. We're not talking about like straight up prejudices in the workplace, right?
I believe that while the sports environment is different,
they tried to take out PJ Fleck.
It is
he said nay.
Normal for a coach or a leader or a guardian of victory to scream at his players. I do believe that some of this will soften as a new generation of younger employee comes up through the ranks and isn't used to being screamed at, isn't used to. You and I got into an argument yesterday. It's the first we've ever had, but...
Not the first argument we've ever had. The first on air.
I don't feel like you and I have ever had an argument where both of us are upset.
Yes.
Yesterday.
Well, beyond yesterday. So thanks, guys.
You guys do. And look, I'm sure it all looks like puppy dogs and ice cream here, and we've had our inner office strife. And I do think that there is something to be said when you see what's going on in daily shows such as Ellen or even the Daily Show, like had this surrounding them. When Jon Stewart, who's really well liked and respected, had some of that stuff surrounding him. It is a lot of my struggles in managing people's personalities here in this job. It's not easy to say no to an idea, a creative idea that someone feels passionately about. And people personalize that more than they'll personalize their TPS reports. And all of that goes into this big pot of festering resentment. And it's a unique piece of adversity that most normal places of work don't deal with.
But you don't think, Amin, that we are coming from a different time and that some of this is going to have to change as young people come in with power and they don't have to take anything that feels like abuse. They don't have to take anything from environments where we learned that, yeah, go in the other room and cry and shake it off and come back and do your job.
Dan, I think it's easy to say, well, it's going to be different when I'm in the position to make those decisions. And when it's my show or when I'm the head writer, it won't be like this. And then you get to that position and you're like, this is hard, man. And I've got a lot of pressure and I'm tired all the time and people are on me. And like Mike said, people keep coming with bad ideas. And you're like, how do I get it across to everybody? How do I let everyone know, yeah, this isn't good enough. We need to step up. And at some point, those pressures manifest itself in I can't be nice anymore. I have to be direct and blunt. And sometimes it is mean. And sometimes it's just direct and blunt and people are not used to hearing things directly and bluntly.
But direct and blunt versus abusive are there's a line and the line does get crossed. And I think for a generation that just experienced a pandemic in which we all worked for companies that were like, oh, we care about you so much, we care about you so much. Actually, psych, we're going to lay off half our workforce. You don't get health insurance and good luck finding another job.
We don't all work for that company.
I didn't work here when the pandemic started. But no, I mean, I think a lot of people realize okay, our jobs don't care about us largely. These jobs do not care for their employees. They will use us and abuse us. And then as soon as hits the fan, we're going to get laid off. We're going to get fired, and no one actually cares for us. So this was this whole trend of quote unquote quiet quitting that people were writing about, which is literally just when you go to work, do your job, and come home and stop working. Because people realize, why am I putting in an extra 10% at work when I'm never going to get a promotion? The CEO of my company is going to make more money than I could ever fathom making. Minimum wage isn't going up. We're not getting pensions anymore. We're all working at jobs. I'm using the royal we, where you are not going to be able to progress the way that our parents' generation progressed in the workforce and were able to buy properties for reasonable prices. All of this has declined over the last generation, and I think young people realize that, and now they're going to not stand for being abused at work, because guess what? It's a job. I'll get another job. If you want to be abusive and racist or sexist or whatever, and I have the ability to quit and move on to something else, I will do that, or maybe I'll call a reporter and tell them how fun working for Jimmy Fallon show actually was.
So I want to be clear. Racism, sexism, that has no place. But the idea that my job doesn't care about me, maybe I didn't discover that. I always knew it. Maybe it's because I worked in sports. I knew. You know how I knew? My first paying job with benefits, health and dental, blew my mind. I made $30,000 a year. And the reasoning given to me by the assistant GM at the time was, hey, I started the same way, I had the same job, and I made the same amount. And I said, that makes sense. And then I went home and I said, wait a second. That was 1998 when you was doing this. I'm doing some calculations here, and 30 ain't 30 no more. 30 is more like 45, 50. And the answer was yeah, but that's the money. Take it or leave it. And so for me, you just have to do you want to do this? When you talk about sports, when you talk about entertainment, when you talk about not what your father did, an engineer, not an architect, not a doctor, not a standard 9 to 5 or whatever type of job with, everything kind of codified. It's not, you have to take with it yo, I'm going to have to eat a sandwich to do this.
I wonder how many people in our audience think their employer cares about them.
I don't think anyone should. Nobody's employer cares about them. If not in this country, because it's all about the bottom line, right? And that's where
you failed.
That's
where the pressure comes from.
That's so absolute.
That's where the pressure comes from. That's where the pressure comes from. And when it's great, everything's great. And when it's not great, people have to become expendable at some point.
Understood, but that doesn't mean that your
Not with a mean
employer
anymore.
doesn't care about you. It doesn't.
I mean, Dan cares about you. He does.
That's why he threw a pen
That's
at
why
you.
he threw a pen at me.
I didn't
Abusive
throw-
environment.
I did not throw it at you. I threw it
at
at
the
the
table,
desk,
and then it came
and
out.
then it came dangerously close.
Oh,
to
I can't wait for my anonymous tell-all to Rolling Stone. Who's Matt Sullivan? Is he still with us? Matt Sullivan.
you. Still
One
with
day
them?
the sandwiches were so small.